The air in the command center froze when Major Blackwood's hand closed around her throat. Lieutenant Commander Thorne hadn't flinched, hadn't struggled, hadn't begged. She simply reached for her collar, unfastening it with deliberate calm, while 20 officers watched in stunned silence. None of them intervened. None of them suspected. How could they know that the quiet woman in the plain uniform, the one their commander was currently assaulting, was about to change everything with a simple revelation? From which city in the world are you watching this video today? If you enjoy stories of quiet power and unexpected justice, consider subscribing for more. The truth is, some of the most powerful people never need to announce their authority. Rain lashes against the windows of Forward Operating Base Arcturus, a remote installation nestled in mountain terrain where the weather is as unforgiving as its commanding officer. Inside the command center, the night shift operates under harsh fluorescent lights. A skeleton crew monitoring communications with the practiced boredom of routine. Screens glow blue in the dimness, casting shadowed faces in artificial light as they track troop movements, supply convoys, and perimeter security. Lieutenant Commander Admiral Thorne enters, rainwater still beading on her plain service uniform. Her demeanor is unremarkable, soft-spoken, efficient, with observant eyes that miss nothing. She stands in the doorway for a moment, absorbing the layout, noting positions, counting personnel. The watch officer barely glances up as she crosses to his station and presents her credentials. Lieutenant Commander Thorne, temporary transfer from Central Command. Administrative Audit Division, she says, her voice quiet but precise. The officer, a captain with bloodshot eyes and 3 days of stubble, squints at her ID and authorization codes. His disinterest is palpable as he taps a few keys, confirming her clearance with minimal effort. "You'll want Major Blackwood," he says, returning to his screen. "Third door on the right," though he doesn't usually take kindly to surprise paperwork, especially at 0200. Thorne nods once, tucking her credentials away. "Noted. Thank you, Captain." The command center falls quieter when Thorne approaches Blackwood's office, as though the air itself recoils from his infamous temper. Through the open door, she observes him barking orders at a junior communications officer, who retreats with hunched shoulders. Maps cover the walls, tactical displays flicker across multiple screens, and a half-empty bottle of whiskey sits prominently on his desk, despite regulations. Major Devereaux Blackwood commands the night operations with the casual authority of a man who has never been questioned. He's tall, broad-shouldered, with a jawline that belongs on a recruitment poster, and eyes that calculate everything in terms of advantage. He doesn't look up when Thorne enters, doesn't acknowledge her, presence as she stands at regulation attention. "Lieutenant Commander Thorne, sir. I've been assigned to review operational records for sectors 4 through 7. Blackwood doesn't look up from his terminal. "We're running tactical exercises for the next 72 hours. Your audit can wait." "I'm afraid it can't, sir. Central Command has flagged discrepancies in mission reports dating back 3 months. My orders are priority alpha." The Major's fingers pause over his keyboard. Several junior officers exchange glances in the room beyond, their eyes darting between Thorne and their commander. One of them, a lieutenant with sharp features and attentive eyes, studies Thorne with unusual intensity. "Discrepancies?" Blackwood's voice drops dangerously. "Are you suggesting my command is filing improper reports, Commander?" "I'm not suggesting anything, sir. I'm here to verify documentation." Blackwood finally looks up, his gaze moving over her with deliberate slowness. He takes in her standard-issue uniform, her regulation haircut, the complete absence of decorative pins or badges that might indicate special service. Nothing about her appears remarkable or threatening. 3 months, you said? That's a lot of records to sift through." "Yes, sir. I anticipated several days of work. And Central Command couldn't send these alleged discrepancies through proper channels. They had to dispatch personnel in the middle of the night during active operations." Thorne meets his gaze without wavering. "I don't question my orders, Major. I execute them." A thin smile crosses Blackwood's face. "Very well, Commander. Lieutenant Finch will set you up with a terminal. Basic access only, mind you. If you need additional clearance, you'll need to justify each request." "Understood, sir." When Thorne requests access to the secured files, Blackwood reluctantly authorizes the minimum clearance. As she reviews records at a corner terminal, strange patterns emerge. missing transport logs, redacted mission parameters, communication blackouts during critical operations. The discrepancies aren't random. They follow a pattern centered around Operation Silverback, a classified mission sequence that appears in references but lacks proper documentation. She works methodically, her fingers moving over the keyboard with practiced efficiency. Occasionally, she glances up to find different officers watching her, their expressions ranging from curiosity to outright hostility. The Lieutenant Blackwood identified as Finch watches her photograph a document with her secure device. Their eyes meet briefly before he turns away, shoulders tense. Hours pass. The command center shifts from night crew to day personnel. Blackwood remains, his stamina apparently unaffected by the long hours. He circulates through the center, checking stations, conferring with officers, always aware of Thorne's presence in the corner. When she rises to stretch her legs and find the restroom, she notices a subtle shift in the room. Conversations pause, screens change. A security officer positions himself near the exit. In the restroom, Thorne splashes cold water on her face and studies her reflection in the scratched mirror. There are shadows under her eyes, but her gaze remains focused, determined. From her pocket, she removes a small device and sweeps for surveillance. Finding none, she quickly checks the encrypted messages stored in her secure comm unit. Still no update from Central Command, still no extraction timeline. She's on her own. That evening, as Thorne returns from the mess hall where she ate alone at a corner table, she overhears Blackwood speaking in hushed tones in an empty corridor. She's asking too many questions. Find out who really sent her. Check with Mercer directly, not his staff. I want to know what game Central is playing. Turning the corner, she comes face to face with Blackwood and a security officer wearing non-standard insignia. Both men fall silent, watching her approach with unmasked suspicion. "Working late, Commander?" Blackwood asks, his smile never reaching his eyes. "Always, sir. The discrepancies in Sector 6 are particularly concerning." "I'm sure they are." Blackwood's tone suggests he finds nothing concerning except her presence. "Don't let us keep you." As she walks away, she feels their gaze burning into her back. In her quarters, a Spartan room with a single bed and desk, she carefully removes a small communications device hidden in her personal effects. The message she sends is brief and encoded. Access granted, irregularities confirmed, timeline accelerated. The response comes within seconds. Proceed with caution, extraction protocol prepared if necessary. Thorne stares at the message, then deliberately destroys the device. Whatever happens next, she's on her own. By morning, the command center staff treats Thorne with thinly veiled hostility. Access codes mysteriously malfunction. Requested files are temporarily unavailable. Junior officers who were speaking with her are suddenly reassigned to field duties. Even the mess hall feels charged with tension when she enters, conversations dropping to whispers. When Thorne confronts Blackwood about the missing Operation Silverback files during the morning briefing, he dismisses her concerns publicly. "You paper pushers from Central wouldn't recognize a proper tactical operation if it hit you in the face," he says, drawing snickers from his loyal officers. "Maybe stick to counting paper clips, Commander." "Sir, with respect, there are protocols for documentation. Even classified operations require proper recording for accountability." "Accountability?" Blackwood repeats, his tone making the word an insult. "Let me tell you something about accountability in the field, Commander. When my men are taking fire in hostile territory, they don't have time to fill out your precious forms. When intelligence comes in that could save lives, we act on it. We don't wait for Central Command's bureaucratic approval." Several officers nod in agreement. Only Lieutenant Finch remains expressionless, his eyes fixed on the tactical display. "No one is questioning the necessity for rapid response, Major." Thorne responds evenly. "But after-action reports should be complete. Resource allocations should be traceable. Mission parameters should be documented." "Noted, Commander," Blackwood says with exaggerated patience. "Now, if you'll excuse us, some of us have an actual base to run." But Thorne persists, methodically documenting inconsistencies. She cross-references supply manifests with mission reports, noting discrepancies in ammunition expenditure. She tracks personnel assignments, finding gaps where elite units seem to vanish from records, only to reappear days later with no explanation for their absence. During a late-night review, Lieutenant Finch approaches her workstation. The The command center is nearly empty, with only essential personnel manning their stations. Blackwood left an hour earlier, summoned to an urgent call in his private quarters. The silverback files aren't in the main database, Finch whispers, positioning himself so his back is to the nearest security camera. There's a secondary system that doesn't connect to central command. Thorne doesn't look up from her screen. Is that standard procedure, Lieutenant? No, but nothing about Silverback has been standard. The Major handpicks personnel, runs operations off-grid, reports directly to General Mercer. Before he can elaborate, another officer calls him away. Finch, perimeter alert in Sector 8. Thorne notices a small data chip left behind on her terminal, perfectly positioned to appear as though it had fallen from her own equipment. She palms it casually, continuing her work as though nothing has happened. Hours later, when the night shift has settled into its routine, Thorne accesses the chip using her secure terminal. It contains access codes to restricted areas and a message. Check sub-basement storage 4B. Arrow 200 hours. Security rotation creates a 7-minute window. The implications are clear. Finch is either helping her or setting a trap. Either way, it's her best lead. That night, Thorne slips away from her quarters during the midnight shift change. The corridors are dimly lit, emergency lights casting long shadows across the floor. She navigates by memory, having studied the base schematics during her preparation for this assignment. The sub-basement access requires both a key card and a biometric scan. Using the codes from Finch's chip, she bypasses the security system, noting that the cameras in this section have been disabled, either for her benefit or as standard protocol for whatever happens there. Storage 4B is marked with hazard warnings and restricted access symbols. The electronic lock yields to Finch's access code, and the heavy door swings open with a pneumatic hiss. Inside, row upon row of weapons crates bare, serial numbers matching inventory that should be deployed with field units. Thorne opens one crate, then another, finding them filled with sandbags carefully weighted to match the original contents. The weapons are gone, replaced with ballast to fool any cursory inspection. As she photographs this evidence, the lights suddenly flare to full brightness. The door slams shut behind her with a definitive thud. Major Blackwood stands there, flanked by 2 security officers with non-standard insignia. His expression carries satisfaction and threat in equal measure. "I did some checking of my own, Commander," he says, emphasizing her rank with contempt. "Your transfer papers came through unusual channels. Who are you really working for?" "I'm exactly who my credentials say I am," Thorne replies calmly, though her mind races through contingency plans. The storage room offers no secondary exits, no cover, no tactical advantage. "That's the problem." Blackwood steps closer. "Those credentials were authenticated through systems that shouldn't have cleared you. Someone's pulling strings, and I want to know who." His security officers maintain position by the door, hands resting on their sidearms. Their uniforms bear standard insignia, but their tactical gear is non-regulation, civilian-grade body armor with custom modifications. "Perhaps you should address your concerns to Central Command, Major." Blackwood laughs without humor. "Oh, I have. And guess what? No audit was authorized for this base. No Lieutenant Commander Thorne was dispatched to review anything." He gestures to her camera. "Now you're photographing restricted storage areas. That's enough for me to detain you under Article 104. "Treason?" Thorne's eyebrows rise slightly. "That's quite an accusation, Major." "Is it? An unauthorized officer accessing classified materials, documenting military supply chains?" He steps closer, invading her personal space. "Who are you working for? Intelligence branch? Internal affairs? Or something more external?" Thorne maintains her composure, neither retreating nor engaging. "I would like to contact my superior officer." "You'll have that opportunity," Blackwood says, "after we've established your actual identity." He gestures to the security officers. "Take her to my office. Full security protocol." They approach cautiously as though expecting resistance. Thorne offers none, allowing them to confiscate her camera and escort her from the storage facility. The corridors are eerily empty as they march her toward the command level, the regular patrols conspicuously absent. In the elevator, Blackwood studies her with calculated intensity. "You know what puzzles me, Commander. Your timing. 3 months of operations, and suddenly Central sends an auditor. Why now?" Thorne meets his gaze. "Perhaps the discrepancies reached a threshold that triggered review. Or perhaps someone is trying to interfere with Silverback before the final phase. The elevator doors open to reveal a command center transformed. The regular staff has been replaced with Blackwood's trusted officers. Armed security personnel stand at key positions. Tactical displays have been locked down, screens showing only basic status information. The confrontation moves to Blackwood's office, where senior staff have gathered for an emergency briefing. Tension electrifies the air as Thorne is escorted in, Blackwood's hand firmly gripping her upper arm. The room falls silent, all eyes tracking their entrance. Our supposed auditor has been caught tampering with evidence, Blackwood announces without preamble, photographing restricted areas, accessing secured files beyond her clearance. He throws her credentials onto the central table, where they land with an accusatory thud. I've spoken directly with General Mercer. No audit was authorized. The room stirs with murmurs. Thorne stands perfectly still, her composure unbroken even as the officers around her shift into defensive postures. She notes positions, counts weapons, identifies potential allies or threats. Lieutenant Finch stands near the back, his expression carefully neutral. You've been lying to my people, Blackwood continues, circling her like a predator. Undermining my authority, creating suspicion among my officers. I've only requested documentation that should be readily available to Central Command, Thorne responds quietly. Standard protocols, Major, nothing more. There is no audit, Blackwood slams his fist on the table, causing several officers to flinch. You're either a spy or a fraud. Either way, you're finished. When Thorne attempts to speak again, Blackwood's control shatters like glass. He crosses the room in 3 strides, seizing her by the throat and slamming her against the wall. The impact forces air from her lungs, but she doesn't struggle. Who sent you? He demands, his voice a dangerous whisper. His fingers press against her carotid arteries, a calculated threat rather than an attempt to choke. The room falls into stunned silence. No one moves to intervene, though several officers appear distinctly uncomfortable. Lieutenant Finch takes a half step forward, then stops himself, conflict evident in his expression. You're making a mistake, Major, Thorne says, her voice barely audible, one you won't recover from. Is that a threat? Blackwood tightens his grip slightly, his face inches from hers. A fact. Thorne's hand moves slowly toward her collar, drawing Blackwood's attention downward. His grip loosens fractionally, suspicion replacing anger in his eyes. Keep your hands where I can see them, he orders, releasing her throat to step back, his hand moving to his sidearm. Thorne lowers her hand, rubbing her neck where his fingers left red marks. The moment stretches, taut with unresolved tension. Major, Lieutenant Finch speaks up, his voice carefully modulated. Sir, regulations require that we formally document any detention of command personnel, regardless of circumstances. Blackwood's attention shifts, giving Thorne a moment to regain her composure. She watches the exchange with calculated interest, noting the subtle power dynamics at play. Finch isn't challenging Blackwood directly, but he's reminding him of protocols that can't be ignored without consequences. Of course, Lieutenant, Blackwood responds with exaggerated patience. We'll follow every regulation to the letter, prepare the detention report, full detail. He turns back to Thorne. In the meantime, Commander, perhaps you'd care to explain what you found so interesting in Storage 4B. Discrepancies between inventory records and physical assets, she answers without hesitation. Specifically, weapons crates containing sandbags instead of ordnance. That suggests either theft or unauthorized deployment. A flicker of something, concern perhaps, crosses Blackwood's face before he masters it. Those crates contain training simulators. The sandbags provide weight equivalency for field exercises. Without proper documentation, without inventory tracking, that violates at least 7 regulations I can name immediately. This is a combat outpost, Commander, not an accountant's office, Blackwood retorts. We adapt to circumstances. By falsifying inventory, by running off-books operations, that's not adaptation, Major. That's criminal negligence at best, deliberate malfeasance at worst. The room temperature seems to drop several degrees as officers exchange uneasy glances. Blackwood's face hardens, his jaw working as he restrains his temper. You have no idea what we're dealing with here, he says finally. The threats we face require flexibility that Central Command doesn't understand. Silverback is saving lives. Is that why the operation has no proper authorization? No oversight? No accountability? Blackwood steps closer again, but this time Thorne stands her ground. You want accountability? I answer to General Mercer directly. He authorized this operation personally. Then you should have no objection to providing that authorization in writing. Operational security doesn't override the chain of command, Major. It never has. The standoff is interrupted by a communications officer entering with urgent purpose. Sir, priority message from Central. General Mercer is requesting immediate contact. A satisfied smile spreads across Blackwood's face. Perfect timing. Patch him through to my private terminal. Sir, the General specified a secure line. Authentication protocols, Sierra 9. Blackwood's smile falters. Sierra 9 protocols are used only in cases of potential command compromise. His eyes dart to Thorne, reassessing. Very well, clear the room. Everyone except security detail and senior officers. As the junior personnel file out, Thorne notices Lieutenant Finch lingering, positioning himself near a secondary communications terminal. His fingers move briefly over the keypad, too quick for casual. Mitch's observation, but deliberate enough for Thorne to recognize a predetermined sequence. The main screen flickers to life, displaying the stern visage of General Mercer. The General's expression reveals nothing as he surveys the room, his eyes eventually settling on Thorne. Major Blackwood, Mercer's voice is clipped, authoritative. I understand you're holding a Commander Thorne for questioning. Yes, sir. She presented herself as an auditor from Central Command, but her credentials appear suspect. She's been accessing restricted areas without proper clearance. Mercer's expression doesn't change. And what areas would those be, Major? Storage facilities containing silverback resources, sir. A heavy pause follows this admission. Mercer's eyes narrow slightly. I see. And you've detained her on what specific charges? Potential espionage, sir. Unauthorized access to classified materials. I understand. Have you followed proper detention protocols? We're in the process, sir. Given the sensitive nature, I asked a simple question, Major. Have you followed protocol? Blackwood shifts uncomfortably. We're ensuring security first, sir. The protocols will be completed. Mercer nods once, his disapproval evident despite his neutral tone. Commander Thorne, what is your assessment of the situation? All eyes turn to Thorne. She steps forward, standing at precise attention. General, I've identified significant irregularities in Operation Silverback's documentation. Missing inventory, unauthorized deployments, communications blackouts during critical operations. When I attempted to access required records, I encountered systematic obstruction. And did you exceed your authority in pursuing these irregularities? No, sir. I operated within the parameters of my assignment. Blackwood interrupts. General, with all due respect, there was no audit authorized through official channels. I verified this personally. Did you indeed? Mercer's tone sharpens. Through which channel specifically, Major? Your adjutant, sir. Colonel Valen confirmed no audit was scheduled for Arcturus base. Another weighted silence fills the room. Mercer's expression hardens perceptibly. I see. That's very interesting, Major, considering Colonel Valen was relieved of duty 3 days ago, pending investigation. The atmosphere in the room shifts instantly. Officers exchange alarmed glances. Blackwood's face pales slightly as he processes this information. Sir, I wasn't informed. Clearly, Mercer cuts him off. Major Blackwood, effective immediately, you will provide Commander Thorne with unrestricted access to all Silverback documentation. You will cooperate fully with her investigation. Is that understood? Yes, sir. Blackwood's voice has lost its edge, replaced by wary compliance. Commander Thorne, you will report directly to me with your findings. Daily updates, secure channel. Understood, General. The screen goes dark without further ceremony, leaving the room in tense silence. Blackwood stares at the blank screen, his expression unreadable. When he finally turns to face Thorne, his composure has returned, though a dangerous light burns in his eyes. It seems you have friends in high places, Commander. His tone is conversational, but the threat underlying his words is unmistakable. You'll have your access. Thank you, Major. Don't thank me yet. He gestures to his officers. Lieutenant Finch will provide whatever assistance you require. I have matters to attend to. Blackwood exits, leaving Thorne with Finch and two security officers whose wary expressions suggest their loyalties remain with their commanding officer. "Well, Commander," Finch says carefully, "where would you like to begin?" "The Silverback command logs. All of them." Finch nods, leading her to a secure terminal. The security officers maintain their position by the door, watching every movement. As Finch accesses the system, he speaks quietly. "That was a dangerous game you just played. The Major doesn't forget challenges to his authority." "I'm not concerned with the Major's feelings, Lieutenant. I'm concerned with operational integrity." "As you should be," Finch responds, his voice barely above a whisper. "But Blackwood isn't the only one with access to Mercer, and not everyone in Central Command wants Silverback exposed." Before Thorne can respond, Finch straightens and speaks in a normal tone. "Here are the command logs, Commander. I'll be at my station if you need anything else." Left alone at the terminal, Thorne begins methodically reviewing the logs, searching for patterns in the chaos of data. Hours pass. The command center operates around her in subdued efficiency, the staff giving her a wide berth. Occasionally, she catches officers watching her with varying degrees of curiosity or hostility. Late into the evening, as the night shift takes over, Thorne makes a discovery that stops her cold. Buried in requisition orders are references to weapon systems that shouldn't exist, experimental prototypes classified beyond even her considerable clearance. More disturbing are the deployment coordinates, locations deep within sovereign territory of a neighboring nation. As she cross-references these findings with mission reports, a shadow falls across her terminal. Major Blackwood stands behind her, his face illuminated by the screen's glow. "Finding what you're looking for, Commander?" "I'm not sure yet," she responds evenly, not bothering to minimize the display. "There seem to be some inconsistencies in the deployment records." "Operational necessity," Blackwood says dismissively. "Sometimes the mission requires flexibility." "Crossing international borders without authorization isn't flexibility, Major. It's an act of war." Blackwood leans closer, his voice dropping to ensure only she can hear. "What do you think Silverback is, Commander? A training exercise? It's the front line of a conflict most of Central Command doesn't have the stomach to acknowledge. If that's true, then it should have proper authorization, proper oversight." "Oversight from whom? Bureaucrats who've never seen combat? Politicians more concerned with optics than effectiveness?" His contempt is palpable. Silverback gets results. That's all that matters. Results at what cost? Violating sovereignty, deploying experimental weapons, falsifying records. Whatever the cost, Blackwood's voice hardens. That's what separates commanders from administrators. We do what's necessary. Their conversation is interrupted by an urgent alert sounding throughout the command center. Officers rush to stations as screens display a perimeter breach in Sector 7. "Security violation," an officer calls out. "Armed intruders, eastern approach." Blackwood straightens immediately, professional instincts taking over. "Full lockdown. Deploy response teams Alpha and Bravo. I want visual confirmation." As the command center erupts into controlled chaos, Thorne notices Lieutenant Finch watching her with an intensity that suggests this is no random security breach. He gives an almost imperceptible nod before turning to his station. Blackwood issues rapid commands, positioning forces to intercept the intruders. In the midst of the activity, he turns to Thorne with suspicion burning in his eyes. "Convenient timing for a security breach, wouldn't you say, Commander? Almost as if someone was expecting external assistance." Before she can respond, the communications officer interrupts. "Sir, Central Command on emergency channel. Admiral Karras requesting immediate contact." Blackwood freezes, confusion briefly crossing his face. "Admiral Karras? Put it through." The main screen activates, but instead of the expected Admiral, the screen remains black. A voice emerges from the speakers, digitally altered to prevent identification. "Major Blackwood, this facility is now under direct naval intelligence jurisdiction. All Silverback operations are suspended effective immediately. Surrender your command to the designated authority." Blackwood's face contorts with fury. "What authority? Identify yourself." "The authority already present in your command center." All eyes turn to Thorne. She stands slowly, her hand moving toward her collar. With deliberate calmness, Thorne unsnaps the hidden fastener that has kept her jacket sealed to her neck. As the fabric falls away, 4 silver stars catch the light, gleaming against the dark fabric of her collar. Admiral Averill Thorne. The blood drains from Blackwood's face as his hand drops reflexively to his side. Around the room, officers snap to attention, shock evident in their rigid postures. The security personnel by the door exchange panicked glances, their hands moving away from their weapons. "At ease," Admiral Thorne says, her voice steady as she straightens her uniform. The command presence that had been carefully masked now radiates from her posture, her gaze, the subtle shift in how she holds herself. "Major Blackwood, you are relieved of command, effective immediately." Blackwood stares at the stars on her collar, disbelief warring with dawning horror as the full implications sink in. He had assaulted a flag officer, a crime that could end more than just his career. "This is impossible," he manages finally. "An admiral wouldn't what, Major?" Thorne interrupts, her tone cold. "Wouldn't investigate personally when evidence suggests a rogue operation? Wouldn't verify intelligence directly when communication channels appear compromised?" From her pocket, she removes a sealed order bearing the Joint Chief's insignia, placing it on the central table with deliberate precision. Operation Silverback was compromised 3 months ago. Weapons diverted, intelligence leaked, sovereign borders violated. We've been tracking the source. Her gaze sweeps the room, noting the varying reactions among the officers: shame, confusion, relief, fear. "I came myself because I needed to see who remained loyal to their oath and who followed orders without question." Lieutenant Finch steps forward, his posture military precise. "Admiral, security teams are in position throughout the base. The perimeter breach was our extraction team establishing containment." Blackwood's face contorts with fury as he realizes the extent of the deception. "This is absurd. I'm calling General Mercer." "General Mercer was taken into custody 6 hours ago," Admiral Thorne interrupts, her voice cutting through his protest like a blade. "Along with 3 other conspirators at Central Command. Your communications have been monitored for weeks." As if on cue, military police enter the room, their insignia marking them as Naval Intelligence Security Detail. Their weapons aren't drawn, but their purpose is unmistakable. "Take the Major and his security detail into custody," Thorne orders. "Lieutenant Finch, you have temporary command pending the arrival of Colonel Zaragoza at WO 600. The military police move with practiced efficiency, securing Blackwood and his most loyal officers. Blackwood offers no physical resistance, but his eyes never leave Thorne, burning with a mixture of hatred and disbelief. "You won't make this stick," he says as they prepare to escort him out. "There are others, people you haven't even identified yet." "I'm counting on it," she replies evenly. "They'll reveal themselves when they try to help you." As Blackwood is led away, Thorne turns to address the remaining officers who stand in stunned silence. "I understand this is difficult to process. You've served under Major Blackwood for months, perhaps years. You've followed his orders, trusted his judgment." She pauses, allowing her words to register. But Silverback crossed a line from operational flexibility into something else entirely. Experimental weapons deployed without authorization. Sovereign territory violated without diplomatic clearance. Supply chains manipulated to divert resources. "The chain of command exists for a reason," she continues, "not to stifle initiative or create bureaucratic hurdles, but to ensure accountability and oversight. When that chain is broken, when commanders operate without constraints, the results can be catastrophic." Lieutenant Finch steps forward. "Admiral, what happens now?" "A full investigation. Every aspect of Silverback will be reviewed. Those who followed unlawful orders believing them legitimate will be evaluated individually. Those who knowingly participated in illegal activities will face appropriate consequences." She turns to the communications officer. "Secure channel to Naval Intelligence Command. I need to provide a status update." As the command center returns to order under Finch's temporary authority, Thorne moves to Blackwood's office, now hers by right of command. The space still bears the imprint of his personality. Tactical maps marked with his notations, personal items arranged precisely. The bottle of whiskey still sitting on the desk. She removes the bottle, placing it in a drawer. From her pocket, she extracts a small communications device and activates it. "Arcturus secure. Blackwood and primary conspirators in custody. Secondary investigation commencing." The response comes immediately. Acknowledged, Admiral. Strike teams report similar results at 2 other facilities. General Mercer is in custody but refusing cooperation. No evidence yet on the ultimate destination of the diverted weapons. Understood. I'll begin interrogations immediately. Through the night, Thorne systematically interviews key personnel, building a comprehensive picture of Silverback's true nature. What emerges is disturbing. A shadow operation using military resources for unsanctioned cross-border activities, answering to channels outside the normal command structure. By dawn, she has identified 3 additional conspirators among the senior staff and confirmed Lieutenant Finch's assessment of those officers who can be trusted. The base operates with subdued efficiency as news spreads of the Major's arrest and the Admiral's presence. Dawn breaks over the mountains as Admiral Thorne stands on the landing pad, watching as Blackwood and his co-conspirators are loaded onto a transport aircraft. The rain has stopped, leaving the air crisp and clear. Morning light glints off puddles scattered across the tarmac, mirrors reflecting the sky. Lieutenant Finch approaches, saluting sharply. The base is secure, Admiral. All compromised systems have been isolated. Colonel Zaragoza's advance team has arrived and begun the transition. Good work, Lieutenant. Your intelligence was crucial to this operation. She studies him thoughtfully. When did you first suspect Silverback wasn't legitimate? 3 months ago, a weapons transfer that didn't appear in any official manifest. When I questioned it, I was reassigned to perimeter security for 2 weeks. Finch's expression remains professional, but there's an undercurrent of relief in his voice. After that, I started documenting discrepancies. When the usual reporting channels yielded no response, I escalated through alternative means. Directly to Naval Intelligence, Thorne confirms. Your reports were instrumental in launching this investigation. Permission to speak freely, ma'am. At her nod, he continues. Why come yourself? You risked everything walking in here as a lieutenant commander. The Major could have had you detained indefinitely, or worse. Thorne watches the sun creeping over the distant peaks, painting the mountains in gold and shadow. 15 years ago, I was a junior officer on a base not unlike this one. I reported irregularities to my commanding officer. He buried my report, and 3 weeks later, we lost an entire special operations team. She turns to face him. Sometimes, Lieutenant, the only way to know the truth is to see it with your own eyes, to understand the culture that allows these situations to develop. Reports and data can tell you what happened, but not why. Finch considers this. And what did you see, Admiral? A command structure that valued loyalty over integrity. Officers who stopped questioning orders, who accepted operational necessity as justification for abandoning principles. She gestures toward the departing transport. Blackwood didn't create this situation alone. He exploited a system already vulnerable to this kind of manipulation. A helicopter appears on the horizon, approaching rapidly. Colonel Zaragoza arriving to assume command. Thorne watches its approach, aware that her direct involvement in the operation is coming to an end. Lieutenant, assemble the personnel for a final address. As the helicopter lands, the base personnel line up in formation, standing at attention. These are the same men and women who barely acknowledged her presence days before, who watched in silence as Blackwood assaulted her, who followed orders without question. Admiral Thorne walks the line, pausing occasionally to speak quietly with individual officers, not seeking deference, but connection, not demanding respect, but earning it through her actions, her courage, her willingness to place herself at risk to uncover the truth. At the helicopter, she turns to address them one last time. The uniform doesn't make the officer, she says, her voice carrying across the tarmac despite its quiet intensity. Our actions do. Each of you enlisted or accepted your commission with an oath to support and defend the Constitution, to bear true faith and allegiance, to obey lawful orders. She pauses, allowing her words to register. That oath doesn't include blind obedience or unquestioning loyalty to any individual. It demands more, your judgment, your integrity, your moral courage. The morning light catches the stars on her collar, the same stars that had remained hidden during her time as Lieutenant Commander Thorne. Remember that, when no one is watching, because someone always is. That someone is you, measuring your actions against your oath. Colonel Zaragoza steps forward, saluting. We'll take it from here, Admiral. The base is yours, Colonel. Lieutenant Finch has the full briefing prepared. The rotors spin to life as she boards the helicopter. Through the window, she watches the base recede, knowing that tomorrow the real work begins, rebuilding the command structure, tracing the full extent of the conspiracy, restoring trust in a system that failed its own people. Below, forward operating base. Arcturus grows smaller, its buildings and personnel reduced to abstract patterns against the mountain landscape. Yet its significance remains outsized in her mind, one node in a network of corruption that extends into the highest levels of military command. As the helicopter rises above the mountains, her secure communications device signals an incoming message. Admiral, we've identified another compromised installation. Same pattern, different commanding officer. Intelligence suggests deeper connections to defense contractors supplying the experimental weapons. Thorne considers this for a moment, weighing options, assessing risks. The conspiracy runs deeper than they initially suspected, with implications that could threaten national security on multiple levels. "Prepare my credentials," she responds finally. Lieutenant Commander Thorne has another base to visit. Her gaze returns to the window, to the mountains now bathed in morning light, to the base where her presence has already catalyzed change. The same rain that had greeted her arrival has cleared, leaving clarity in its wake. The clouds have broken, revealing the landscape in its true detail, both its beauty and its dangers fully visible in the uncompromising light of day. In her reflection on the helicopter window, she sees not the Admiral with 4 stars, but the officer who walked into a hostile command center alone, armed with nothing but truth and the courage to uncover it. The uniform is different now, the rank visible, but the person remains the same, committed to justice, to accountability, to the principles that define true leadership. As the helicopter banks toward its destination, Admiral Thorne mentally prepares for the next phase of the operation. There will be resistance, denial, perhaps even danger. But there will also be allies like Finch, officers who recognize the difference between loyalty to an individual and fidelity to their oath. The stars on her collar catch the sunlight, no longer hidden but shining with purpose, not as symbols of authority, but as reminders of responsibility, to the truth, to justice, to the ideals that transcend any single command. Below, the landscape unfolds in endless variation, mountains giving way to valleys, forests to plains. Somewhere ahead lies another base, another commanding officer who believes himself beyond accountability, another opportunity to restore integrity to a system designed to protect it. Admiral Avril Thorne straightens her uniform, ready for whatever comes next. The mission continues, one truth at a time.